Okay, good morning, everybody. I'll call this recommending committee meeting of August 31st, 2010 to order. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law, Ms. Clerk?
Yes, we are.
The first item of the day is an abeyance item, Bill number 2010-37, which amends the city's administrative code to adopt new fee tables applicable to permits, inspections, and other services performed in connection with the city's technical codes, and to make other permit-related adjustments. This bill is sponsored by Councilman Gary Reese. And I might add that if this bill is moved out of committee today, it will be eligible for adoption at the September 1st City Council meeting, which is tomorrow. Who is going to be making a presentation from staff?
That would be me.
Mr. Knight, you may proceed.
Chris Knight, Director of Building and Safety. This item was heard by the recommending committee 2 weeks ago, at which time representatives of the National Association of Industrial and Office Properties came forward and asked for a 2-week abeyance to get some answers to some questions related to salaries and some other issues. We have worked with them. They have since provided another letter objecting to the 15 and 10% increases unless there are concessions given by the bargaining units on salaries. The contention is that the salaries are for city employees are too high to justify increasing our fees.
Chris, before you go into those answers to questions posed by that group, I was not here 2 weeks ago. I believe Councilman Anthony probably was not. So for the benefit of the committee and everybody else listening,
Background on
exactly.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's exactly where I was headed. About 2 years ago, we hired a consultant to do a study. He will be present at the council meeting tomorrow to do a study to look at our fees. We currently have a valuation-based fee schedule. There is an intuitive nexus of value to a project and the amount of effort that goes into building and safety services for that.
Explain what that means. You said an intuitive?
Intuitive.
What does that mean?
Because the intuition is that if it has a higher value and is a more expensive and bigger project, it takes more effort.
Is that true?
That's not always the case. The preferred route that we are recommending in this is to go to a cost base. We are an enterprise fund, and under state statutes of enterprise funds, it says that our fees should cover the costs of doing plans check, issuing permits, doing inspections, and the administration. So what we're proposing is a fee-based schedule that ties those fees directly to the level of effort for each of the different building types and sizes and square footages. So, and moving away from evaluation base. There have been court cases in California and other states where valuation-based fee schedules have been challenged and been defeated because of a lack of nexus to the fees charged. So we felt that it was better. Plus, we had an antiquated fee schedule. Our fees have not been increased since 1993, and they're simply not keeping pace with the level of effort that's required and the cost of doing business in today's world. So we've asked for a cost base, and we're asking to increase our fees because in 2008, 31 employees were laid off in May of 2008. In March of 2009, we laid off another 35, and then in June of this year, we laid off another 9. We have been able the last 2 years to balance our budgets only through attrition of staff, only through laying people off. What is beginning to happen, and it is beginning to happen, we averaged in 2010 4.6 holdovers a day. In our inspection area right now, we are averaging 24.6 holdovers a day.
What's a holdover?
A holdover is we try to do inspections. If you call on Monday, you get your inspection on Tuesday. If you do not get it on Tuesday, it holds over to Wednesday, and we try not to have that happen. I just received a communication from the Smith Center expressing concern about getting their inspections on time and the delay of that project. The issue becomes one of service versus fees, having the money to be able to retain the staff and still provide the service. This RIF of 9 in June took us below our service levels, and we are headed, if we do not increase fees, if we're not able to increase our revenues, headed towards another RIF for next year's budget of probably another 9 folks. And that is going to begin to severely hurt our ability to service our customers. So the question that I've posed to the industry has been, how do I address this? Do I address it by not being able to service you, or do I address it by having higher fees? And the home builders have told us address it with the higher fees because we can't afford the holdovers in our projects. So they have agreed not to object. The AGC at one time was telling us, address it through the fees because we can't afford those holdovers either. I think their position right now is they're not wanting in this game at all. So, but that's kind of where we are. We felt it was necessary. I did an example of $1 million house using a 1979 fee schedule and our current fee schedule. And the building fees under the 1979 fee schedule would give us $5,000 more than our current fees. So,
Why is that?
because we have not increased fees, and we have not done, we have always kept our fees low, and it's an antiquated fee schedule, that's why.
Okay.
Just that simple. And it's inadequate for what we have to do to maintain our service levels. So we hired a consultant. The consultant did the work. He came back and said many of our fees were way too low. Recommended overall an increase of about 65%. We felt that was way too high. We felt also that there needed to be a phased approach because in this economic climate, we didn't want to be onerous on our customers. I'm as sensitive if I can't keep people in business and drive people out of business with my fees, then it's self-defeating. So we proposed a phased approach. The study, as it was completed, looked at our current fee schedule and said that our cost recovery rate is 48%. In other words, we're losing 52% every year. And so we have a 48% cost recovery rate. We are recommending a phased approach. We're not recommending 65%. We're recommending 50% in the next 3 years. And we did that in order to be able to not be as onerous on the private sector. 25% affected immediately, provided we can get our training done and get our Hansen system up and running immediately. Give us time to get it in place. And then a year hiatus. The year hiatus had several reasons. One, to see how the 25% worked. 2, to see what the economy's doing. 3, to look at our time estimates for where we are and the fees that we're charging based on those time estimates. Are they accurate? We have software now that our inspectors use in the field, and we track our times to make sure that those fees that are based on our costs, that our costs are right. And if they're not right, we're going to adjust them. So that's something we wanted to do. And then in response to the NAIOP concern, it gives time for the negotiations with the union and those kinds of things. So we felt that 1 year wait was worth it. But we also know at 48% cost recovery, we need at least 50% increase in our fees. The ordinance recommends more. That would be something we would have to address over time and hopefully through volume. So that's where we are. When the council asked for an 8% reduction in staff salaries, we looked at that in the department. That 8% reduction for everybody. At that time, all of the employees, now we're -9 now, the impact on that was about $500,000. We were projected to lose $2.3 million. So it really would not have been the panacea for solving our issues with the revenues and the costs. So, I mean, while it helps, yes, and there's some validity, yes, but it is not the answer in and of itself. It has to be a combination of fees, reduction in costs, reduction in salaries, and those kinds of things. So that's where we're at. We believe that the 25, 15, and 10 is important for the survival. We have put into the ordinance, and we have met with the enterprise fund. On the enterprise fund, under state statute, there's an enterprise fund committee that is made up of representatives of the home builders, the AGC, a contractor at large, the finance director, and myself. And that committee voted to recommend these fees to the city council, so these fees come forward with a recommendation from that committee. One of the things that they asked for was internally is that our operating reserve not exceed 20% of our operating expenses. Under state statute, it can be 50% of our operating expenses. But they wanted some kind of trigger to say, you really need these fees. So the Enterprise Fund Committee is paying attention. It will not come forward. We put a provision in this ordinance under 304.10 that says that the building official has to present this to the Enterprise Fund Committee if we are going to lower the fees. The fees will be an automatic increase unless we come and say we don't need them. So we're recommending approval of this. We've done a lot of changes in response with NAIOP and others, and hopefully we're trying to address all the issues. The one issue that I simply don't have the ability to address is the issue with salaries. That is a legally binding bargaining unit agreement that's outside of my control.
Okay, thank you. A few questions. Councilman Anthony, do you have any questions?
I'm going to wait till after public comment,
Okay.
and then I do have some questions. for
Okay.
Chris.
A few questions, Chris. You've been working on this project, if I can call it that, for how long?
2 years.
And you have incorporated the input, suggestions, criticisms, et cetera, from many, many affected groups, have you not?
Yes.
Okay. The enterprise fund, the money that would be generated by these increased fees goes to the enterprise fund, correct?
That is correct. We don't receive any money from the general fund. It's
So-
100% our fees.
So this has nothing to do, it has no effect on the general fund?
No effect whatsoever.
Okay, all of the fees for the permits, the inspections, and other services go to the enterprise fund, which pays for many things, including, well, primarily the labor from your department, correct?
Yes, it pays for the labor, it pays for our computers, it pays for our vehicles, our gas, our insurance. There's a government administration cost in there where we pay our share of those departments that aren't revenue generating, like IT support, city manager's office, et
Okay.
cetera.
Can you give a couple of typical examples? Take an average person who would be affected by this increased fee table. Pick an average project, if you will, and maybe a couple of projects, one that's a more modest project and one that's a larger project, and tell us the difference that we're talking about in the fees that would be charged. And I know I kind of threw you a curveball here,
Yeah, that's
but
all right. Actually...
if you can do something like that?
Yes, sir.
I mean, are we talking about a lot of money? Money is relative, a lot is a relative term. Or are we talking about fairly modest amounts?
Let me give you a single-family dwelling to start with. Where is it? Single-family dwelling production, construction, type valuation, $108,000.
What's the 108,000? Is that,
That would be the value of the house,
okay,
okay, the construction cost of the house.
okay. Now, the construction cost of that example you're giving, which is 108,000, what does that translate to the fair market value of the home?
That's a $100,000 house.
Okay, so we're talking about a below median
Right.
priced house.
It is 2,021 square feet, living area, and 376 square foot garage.
Okay,
Okay, it's a standard house.
okay.
CLV fees, total building fees would be, I don't see our current fees. Our current fees on there? This is Yolanda Palomo. She knows the fees better than I do. Maybe I have to go to the statement. We didn't put our current fees in here.
And Chris,
It'd be $639 total building fees for us. Let me see if I have it.
and if this is something that you can't do today,
Yeah.
because this is just a recommending committee, we are not passing a law today. We are making a recommendation to the full board, if you will. This is probably a good question for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be prepared to answer it.
Okay, I don't have any more questions. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to do one thing for the record before you opened it up for public comment. At the last recommending committee meeting, a proposed First Amendment was handed out, which is in your books. That amendment made some adjustments to high-rise buildings, to shell buildings, and added a provision that Chris talked about, where he would take future increases to the advisory committee. In response to comments by NAIOP, we have before you a new fee table which we would present as the basis for a second amendment. And real quick, what did that do, Chris? The changes in the fee table that's here?
It changed the shell buildings in accordance with the request from NAIOP to have, a shell building is 4 walls and a roof. And we have a high-rise shell building. We changed the definition of high-rise to match the IBC for the request of NAIOP. It's at 55 feet or higher. So if you're 55 feet or higher in construction, you are a high-rise building. So we have a high-rise shell and a low-rise shell, plus we have an expanded shell. Some people, instead of just building 4 walls and a roof, want to put in bathrooms and lobby and some other things, but they're not going to do the complete tenant improvement. So those amendments were put in there, plus the amendment to require the examination by the Enterprise Fund Committee.
Okay, so your recommendation is to pass this bill as amended,
As a second amendment.
as a second amendment. Okay. All right.
Councilman, I have, using the tables that are in the ordinance, single-family residential, 2,000 square feet, our current fee is $1,652. Using the table for 25%, it would go up to $1,900, so it'd be a $250 increase for a 2,000 square foot home.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that example. Okay, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to be heard on this item? If you would like to be heard, please step up to the microphone and tell us your name, please, and we'd be glad to hear from you.
These chairs are heavy. Maybe it's me this morning. Yes, we asked...
What is your name, please?
Juanita Clark.
Thank you, Juanita.
And I'm here to report that Charleston Neighborhood Preservation has stated about this concern. I guess we were looking at the time of it. We asked for a rejection of this item because the 2010 body, meaning our board, our council and our mayor, would increase the cost of doing business in our city nearly 2 years early, I guess it's about 1 year and 10 months, before the next election of several different council persons. We believe the new officers need the opportunity to make such decisions. Thank you.
Okay, well, the next municipal election is next spring, so we're talking about potentially about 8 months away, not 1.5 years. But I appreciate your concern, and this council does have the ability at any time to revisit any bill, any city ordinance, and if we felt that an adjustment was appropriate, whether it be the repeal of a law or the amendment to a law, we can always take it up at a future time. So thank you for your comments.
Yes, I'm aware that you can. We just wanted to give
Very good.
comments on that. But we appreciate your questions this morning. That was very helpful because you posed some questions that we had and cannot usually get the answers to. So
Okay, you're welcome. I just wanted the information for myself as well. Okay, Councilman Anthony. Oh, I'm sorry. Please state your name.
I'm Suzette LaGrange with Colliers International here on behalf of NAIOP, Commercial Real Estate Development Organization. We have been working hand in hand with Chris for quite a few months now, and we appreciate the changes that he has made to the ordinance. We are not standing in the way of the 25% increase today. We understand time is money, and in order to guarantee reasonable levels of service out of this department, he needs to have the adequate staff. We are severely concerned about the salary and pay levels of his department. Again, we understand there's something he can do about that, but we feel that if the industry is coming to the table with a 25% increase in fees, which the fees that developers pay for office and industrial buildings are not $1,900 for a house, although multiply that times 100 homes, it does start to add up. An additional 25% of nothing, which is development that's going on pretty much right now, is still nothing. So we understand he's got to make cuts in his department, but if we're willing to step up with an increase in 25%, we want to have that 2-year time period for also the employees and the City Employees Association to step up and make adjustments. Their pay levels are much higher than your peer jurisdictions here in the Valley. And, you know, the industry is willing to pay for service, but not overpay for service. They really need to be at levels of the private industry, or at a minimum, the peer jurisdictions, the other jurisdictions in the community. So what we asked was, you know, to tie the future increases in 2012 and 2013 to some sort of concessions by the Employees Association. Our druthers would be, you know what, just like you said, we have the ability to amend and change your fee tables at any time. Just do away with the increases, the automatic increases. And believe me, they're pretty much automatic increases. In the next 2 years, it's going to be increased with the pay levels and the contract that's in place with the employees. It's going to happen. I mean, there's nothing that the enterprise fund can say to be a backstop. You're going to need those increases in fees. And we would like an opportunity for the industry to be able to come to the table again and see if this 25% his help is able to live up to the service delivery standards that we've set together and working together, then there should be no reason that we wouldn't again support a fee increase. It's not such that with this 25%, it's not such that the city of Las Vegas is going to be at a competitive disadvantage with the other municipalities, and that's something very important for you as council members to keep in mind. But we don't like the automatic increases coming down the pipeline with absolutely no input from the industry. So Chris has done a fabulous job with his department, and we believe he's very sincere in service delivery to the industry. We're just concerned about the future increases.
Thank you for your comments. Will you be at the council meeting tomorrow?
I'm sure I will if it passes here.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question.
Any, of this speaker?
Yes.
Yes.
And you too, Chris, just so I understand this, when is this go into effect, if it were to pass?
It would go into effect as soon as possible. We've been working with IT to get our Hanson up and to get our staff trained.
So when would the fee increase go into effect, if it passed tomorrow?
I would say within the next 3 months.
Okay, 3 months. And the increase would be 25%, is that correct?
Yes.
25%. Okay, and then, so that would be in 2010, so 2011, it would go up an additional what?
Would not go up at all.
Would not go up in 2011. Okay, 2012,
15%,
15%. And then 2013?
10%.
Okay. Okay, so what you're saying is your industry is okay with the 25% increase, you're just concerned about the future increases?
Right. We want the ability to come back to the table and work with them.
Okay.
And we want the opportunity for the Employees Association to come to the table as well.
So when does the Employee Association contract expire?
2014.
Okay, we're talking about the CEA.
The
CEA.
For clarity.
Expires 2014.
So we have no way of adjusting salaries until 2014,
If I may.
July of 14.
For the record, Mark Jensen, Chief Financial Officer. We don't have any current contractual way of doing that. I will tell you that you're aware that for the last year and a half, we've been finishing up a comp and class study. And so we know, for example, that Chris's inspectors and plans examiners are right at, based on the comp class study by Siegel, are right at the levels of pay of the other local entities. We do know compared to municipalities outside of the Las Vegas area, greater MSA area, that we are a little bit ahead of, into the low teens ahead of market compared to those. We are, as you're aware, currently trying to negotiate a process by which we would implement the recommendations for the class and cost study, but that has to go through its normal contractual process. So at the moment, with the exception of concessions made or offered by the Las Vegas City Employee Association, class and comp study is probably the only other tool that we have currently that we can negotiate into some adjustments, not only in Chris's area, but obviously throughout the whole city, because it was a universal study.
Okay.
So hopefully that big, longer answer to your short question.
Okay, but the contract isn't up till July of 2014.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we would love to see that information. We haven't, the comp study, the information that we have shows the city substantially higher than other municipalities.
And
Okay.
The potential explanation for that is when they do class and comp studies, they measure them from midpoint to midpoint. They don't measure based on actual people where they are in the ranges, because one entity might have people that have more longevity, so on and so forth, than another entity. So they base it on midpoint to midpoint, which could explain the difference.
Chris, how many employees in your department?
Right now, we have 42, and we have 2 on loan to Public Works, so for a total of 44.
And are all of them CEA employees?
Yes, except for 3. Myself, admin secretary, and management analyst.
Okay.
And Chris has done a fantastic job in the last 2 years of balancing the budget. He hasn't lost money, which, I know that was on the back of jobs, and as an industry, we don't like to see that. We'd rather have more people put there to handle the work. But it's not such that they've been coming out of their reserves, at least to my knowledge, and looking at the budgets. He's managed to balance the budgets very narrowly, but he's been able to do it. He's done a good job. I understand. But, it is such that we're not permitting as many homes as we're permitting many commercial buildings. It's going to happen.
Again, just for the record, he actually has balanced the budget by drawing down his fund balance. He has, his revenues have been significantly under his expenditures, and he's balanced the budget based upon his fund balance that he amassed during the good period.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else from the public like to be heard on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I would like to state for the record that this is a recommending committee. We are not the board. We are not the city council. This will be a proposed ordinance as amended for the second time to possibly be considered by the full council. And at that time, I think it'll be appropriately vetted, even more so than this morning, and there will be 7 people to consider whether or not this is a good thing or not. So this is just a preliminary committee, if you will, that has the ability to not send it forward, or to send it forward with no recommendation, or to send it forward with a recommendation for approval. Isn't that right, Council?
That's correct.
Okay. Anything else, Councilman Anthony?
Yeah, I want to ask Chris a question. This is the dilemma I'm having, Chris. We have really no development going on out there. I talk to construction owners and architects and engineers all the time, and they've laid off 50, 60, 70% of their employees. So there's very little going on. These companies are kind of hanging on by the skin of their teeth, and then we turn around and say we're going to make it more costly for you to do business when there really is no business in the first place. So how do I grab onto that? How do I initiate fee increases when they're probably not going to pay them anyway because there's nothing going on? So, I mean, it's kind of like a revolving circle. It seems to me that we should we should be in kind of in, we're basically in the same dilemma as private enterprise, and we should be sticking together until things turn around and see what happens then. And, the other part of it is, it's unfortunate that the contract isn't up till 2014, but, there should be ways for us to cut our costs in doing business, and we're forced in a position where we can't.
I can respond to that. I had the exact same dilemma when we started this process. Because it's like, you want to what? You want to go and increase fees when the economy is as bad as it is. And the answer was, in order to survive, yes, I have to do that. And is the timing right or is the timing wrong? And the issue that I had to address is, well, there isn't that much going on, so the fee increases don't impact that much work. If you try to do it, say, at 2004 rates, you're going to have so many projects in the pipeline that you're going to get the industry in here saying, look, we've done our financial planning on this, and now you want to raise the fees, and you're exponentially driving my planning up, and I got a project coming in 3 months, and I'm going to have this fee increase that I haven't counted on, because they plan things out a year in advance. So right now is actually the best time to raise fees when there isn't that much work, so that when the economy does come back, they are able to calculate those fees into the projects that they have. The ones that they have now are small projects of lesser value, and yeah, it does play on that, and I have that concern, and that's the reason we only ask for 25, 50, and 10, to try not to impact those fees as much as possible, those projects as much as possible, and to work with our partners on that. So I understand your dilemma. I had the exact same dilemma when we started. And the answer I had to come to is, while perception tells you this is the worst time to raise fees, reality tells you you better do it now, because if you do it when the economy turns around, you're going to affect too much, and you're going to affect too many planning, and you're going to too much planning and too much effort on the part of your customers. And they're going to try to hit a moving target that's going to drive them crazy. So even in consideration of my customer, it was like, now's the time. I have to do this.
Okay.
That's kind of the answer.
I appreciate your answer, and I'm glad. I know you put a lot of work into this, and I'm glad to hear the industry is congratulating you for working with them. But since I don't have to vote till tomorrow, my motion is going to be to send it to the City Council without a recommendation.
You have 40 full-time employees right now that are paid for out of the enterprise fund?
42.
42, okay. They're full-time employees, and they're working on these kinds of projects, correct?
Yes, sir.
They're working on the permits and the inspections and the other services that your department provides, because there are projects that are ongoing in the city of Las Vegas, are there not?
We've actually had an increase in residential in the past few months. Our inspections moved. We were running about 250 inspections a day. 3 days ago, we had 400. And, well, I mean, we had a bunch of holdovers because of it, because I don't have the staff to do that. We laid off 4 inspectors, and an inspector can do anywhere from 15 to 20 inspections a day. That's 60 inspections. And if I'd have had those 4 inspectors, I can do up to 320. But I can't do it right now. I can't meet the demand right now. Plans check, we are doing our very best. On plans check, we've moved from 72 plans a week to 82 plans a week out the door. And we are trying to keep things going. We dropped from a little over 10 days in 1 week back down to our plan review turnaround time right now is 4.6 days. So you bring your plan in, and 4.5 days later you have it back out of building and safety.
Okay.
So our staff is working as hard as they can. It's just the workload's even now without stuff going on, because we're so low in staff. We've reduced very similar, 65%. So
Okay.
we're
Thank you.
keeping pace with our partners.
Okay, once again, this is a recommending committee, and the full board will have an opportunity, I imagine, in just a few seconds based upon our vote, to consider this and get a lot more information tomorrow. There's a motion on the table to forward this to the council with a what did you call it, Councilman Anthony?
No recommendation.
With no recommendation. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. This will go to the council tomorrow without a recommendation, but it is going forward to the council for review. Okay. Our next bill, and I might say that and thank you for your input, folks. We appreciate it, and we encourage you to come tomorrow so that the whole council can hear what you have to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The remaining bills on today's agenda, if moved out of committee today, will be eligible for adoption at the September 15th City Council meeting. Bill number 2010-38 establishes time limits within which a member of the City Council may request reconsideration of council action to deny a zoning-related application. This bill is sponsored by Councilman Stephen D. Ross.
Guy with the Planning and Development Department. Currently, Title 19 does not specify the procedures for how items that are denied may be reconsidered. And so what's proposed before you today is to establish that process by first defining who may request the item to be reconsidered, and then also establishing a time limit in terms of when that may be reconsidered. And the time limit that's proposed is within 14 days of the action. And then finally, there is another provision made relative to notification, that when an item is brought forward for reconsideration, that all of the property owners who were notified under the first action would also be notified under the reconsideration of the item.
Thank you very much. Your recommendation is for approval?
For approval, yes.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Councilman Anthony, do you have any questions of staff at this
No.
point? This is a public hearing. Would anybody like to be heard on this matter? And we know who you are, but for the record, please state your name again.
Wendy Miller, with Trust Neighborhood Preservation, and I'm reporting on what to put forward that is recommended. And this is a reject. This item, which if not rejected, is deceitful and dishonest to broad ranges of affected constituents. After every no vote, a statement will be pronounced that this vote may be reversed within 10 days. That's a question. Is that kind of how the process would be?
Flynn? I think your question, if I understand it, is that for every vote, whether it be a yay or a nay,
Yes.
would we have to announce on the record that there is a time frame that applies for any council member to bring this back for reconsideration? Do we have to say that every time? Is that your question?
Yes, however, we understood that it was only for a nay vote, but
No, that's a good question. Is it only for a nay vote that one can move for reconsideration?
Per this ordinance, correct.
Okay. Okay, the second part of your question then is, do we have to then announce at every council meeting when there's a no vote that there's a time frame to move for reconsideration?
I'm going to defer to the city attorney.
That might be a good informational item if it were, if it operated on the public, but it operates on you only. And so I don't know that you benefit yourselves a great deal by repeating that every time when you already know it. But if there's some reason that you think the public ought to know that, there's certainly no harm in doing it.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, Ms. Ingram?
I know we do have a statement. But
Okay.
another sentence here. No may within 14 days mean yes. A confused, unorganized state, the inherent unpredictability in the behavior of a natural system, chaos.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public? Then the public hearing is closed. Councilman Anthony, do you have a motion?
And my motion is to approve of this,
To send it forward with a positive recommendation?
correct.
Okay, all those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Bill number 2010-39 amends the permit requirements pertaining to group use of city parks, establishes limitations on certain law enforcement activities in city parks, provides that a portion of James Gay Park, currently a children's park, will be made available for general use, and deletes obsolete provisions relating to park use. This bill is proposed by our city attorney, Brad Cherbik. Staff.
I'll make this presentation initially. I have Mr. Urbeck here from our office to correct any misstatements I might make. As you know, there was litigation in federal court over feeding the homeless. That portion of the litigation was resolved in favor of the plaintiffs, prohibiting us from enforcing our provision on feeding people in the parks. There were other elements of that litigation, including a challenge to our permit requirements. And as in an effort to settle that, there's been discussions between the ACLU, which was in support of the plaintiff in that case, and our office. The settlement that has tentatively been agreed to and will be implemented by this ordinance if it passes does a few things. It provides that people who want to assemble up to and including 75, well, up to through 74 people for some kind of assembly, including demonstration, festival, fair, concert. Anything below that number would not require a permit from the Leisure Services Department. The second element would be that there would be limitations on law enforcement as far as requesting people to leave. It provides that requiring a person to leave a public park under the authority of a trespassing type ordinance or statute wouldn't be done without due process. It would also prohibit would also say that the city can ban a person from a public park only if there's evidence of unlawful activity, and indicates that that needs to be pursuant to an arrest or citation or court order or an ordinance that establishes an appeal hearing and subsequent judicial review. The third element of the settlement would take a portion of James Gay Park that's located at East Street and Harrison Avenue. That park currently being limited to children's use, and would set, I believe, the north portion of that park aside for general use, so that adults, whether or not they're accompanying children, could use that park. And then finally, although not part of the settlement, we would affirmatively take out of our code the homeless feeding provision that was invalidated. And we recommend approval. It has come to our attention that there are some questions about how we would enforce the permit requirement as it related to fairs, festivals, and concerts. Presuming that there could be some event like that of less than 75 people, there was concern that we still ought to require a permit, and it's my understanding that the ACLU doesn't object to us removing those three words. So we would recommend that this be sent forward as a First Amendment on your page 1, where it says, on line 24, where it says any demonstration, festival, fair, concert, or any other organized assemblage, etc. We would remove those three words so that it would say any demonstration or other organized assemblage of 75 or more participants. In the future, we would also come back and perhaps adopt different rules for indoor facilities and outdoor facilities. There is a thought that, for example, a facility like Stewart Mojave probably ought to have a different number than 75, but because we're in negotiations with the ACLU, and because we have a deadline of September 15th to get this done, we recommend going forward with the amendment as I presented it, and we'll come back and revisit that. Mr. Rebecca, you have anything you'd like to add?
No, unless there's any questions.
Your recommendation is that we send this ordinance to the full council as amended, your verbal amendment just now. Did you say that this is as a result of a Ninth Circuit ruling or a federal district court ruling?
The federal district court ruled in our favor, except as to the provision of food
Okay.
to individuals. I was personally there at the Ninth Circuit argument, and the court expressed concern over the term annoy, participant, and there were basically 5 issues that are addressed with this agreement. And then the court referred it to their mediation program. We had a Ninth Circuit mediator and had telephone hearings for quite some time between Mr. Lichtenstein, the ACLU, myself, and the mediator. And this was what was eventually worked out.
Okay. Through that mediation process, with the Ninth Circuit mediator. And this ordinance is a settlement, if you will,
Correct.
that has been reached between the City of Las Vegas and the ACLU, consistent with the Federal District Court ruling and the Ninth Circuit mediation process.
Correct, and in fact, it's a settlement agreement that was entered into with a cutoff date that we needed to enact ordinances consistent with the settlement agreement by September 15th this year, and that's what we're doing, and it satisfies everyone.
Okay. Did you have any other comment? Okay. Councilman Anthony?
Motion to send this with the amendment to the city council with a recommendation.
It prohibits in a city park the hitting of golf balls? Have you seen Councilman Anthony hit golf balls? Because
That's why.
His shirt says he has
I mean,
swing
That's what-
should we have
that's in there.
exceptions for Councilman Anthony and the way he hits golf? I'm just
We have a lot of
kidding.
exceptions.
I'm just kidding. Okay, your motion is for approval, correct? Okay, all those in favor of that say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Citizens' participation, public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the committee. No subject may be acted upon by the committee unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the table and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Do we have any citizen participation? Good morning again.
Thank you. Yes, Juanita Park, Charleston Neighborhood Preservation. We just have a question. Why are recommending committee items named legislation?
Well, I can try and answer that, maybe Mr. Steed as well, because that's what we are considering. An ordinance is legislation. An ordinance is a law that is passed by a legislative body, and the city council, in part, is a legislative body. Would that be a fair answer, Mr. Steed?
That's correct. This is the equivalent of what the legislature does, but at our level, legislation being rules of prospective application, general application, as opposed to decisions that involve personal facts. Those would be administrative kinds of things. That's what you do on your licensing agenda, is when you have hearings, that's administrative. But the legislation is adopting rules of general application for the future.
For example, tomorrow, if the council adopts an ordinance, we have legislated, we have created a law, and that's called legislation from the legislative branch, and the city council is a form of a legislative branch of government. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.